out and say, well, when it was written, it pertained to that certain time. And here we are 2,000 years later, and, we're still, I mean, it's so interesting because the same thing came about the Constitution, that we're like following this document that was written in 1776. Like, y'all, that was so long ago. Times have changed. It's time to, not at all saying that, I want to rewrite the Bible, but I'm just saying that there are nuances. And if you aren't reading it for yourself and connecting to God yourself with an interpretation of it, if you're letting everyone else but you interpret, then you're going to be confused. You're going to be mixed up because you don't know it for yourself. You don't know God for yourself. You know your pastor, you know your leader, you know your priest, you know whomever, and that's your God. That's who you know. That's who you're living for. That's who's telling you what's wrong and what's right. And that's your judge. And hopefully, if that's what you believe, then when you get there, hopefully they've led you the right way. But oftentimes it's full of
so
hate.
we taking a gamble either way, is what she's saying. Like, if we go and we try to figure it out on our own, or if we take whatever it is that they're feeding us, and we take that as law, it's still a gamble. Because I feel like a lot of people, they have issues with trying to go against the teachings of the church because they feel like if they do, that they'll go straight to hell.
Well, you know what? No, if your teacher is leading you in the right path, that's great. If they're leading you, but what I have found though is that a lot of these teachers, they teach hate. They're teaching, what they're teaching is not good. And so they're teaching you these things, and now you're following them. You're outside abortion clinics, like making people feel horrible about themselves, instead of doing God's work and actually adopting a kid and saying, oh, look, don't abort, we adopt. But I'm going off because of the whole political situation we are now with abortion. But, you have to know it for yourself. And hopefully your pastor is leading you through a path of love and light instead of hate and judgment, which is typically what it is. Because typically you've learned what you know, and now you feel as if you're judge and jury for everyone out there, and that's just hate. And so with that hate in your heart, when you get to the pearly gates, that's between you and God and your pastor. And your leader is just as guilty, because, the leaders who don't teach people correctly, they're accountable for all of those souls. So, that's on them.
Do you think that they're accountable if it's a church to actually follow that? Like, it's a choice to say that whatever it is that they're teaching me is law. Like, this is,
So I think if I'm your leader, and if I say, you know what, to be homosexual is a sin, and we're going to go out and we're going to make homosexual to be gay illegal. That's what I'm teaching you. And now you say, you know what, she's right, it's illegal. We're gonna it's a sin, we're gonna make it illegal, and we're going to sit outside of gay nightclubs and shout hate. You're guilty too. You're guilty, and I'm the one who taught you that, so I'm doubly guilty because I'm the one who said this is the truth. I lied to you.
But that was that truth. Like, I don't think that it's wrong for them to feel like, I don't think that it's wrong for people to feel the way that they feel. Like, even though society may teach us that, you shouldn't feel we have progressed, right? Like, we're not in the 50s anymore. So, if you want to be gay, like, that's a choice. That's a personal choice. And I honestly feel like that's just who people are. But even if I'm telling you that being homosexual is a sin and it's wrong and they should be, whatever, like, that is still that's just how I feel. That's what I believe. And if someone wants to hold that dear and they identify with that theory, then how is that on me just by simply voicing what I feel. Like I don't think that that's necessarily.
Well, maybe you're right. Maybe that's the path of learning for yourself. But I do believe there is a scripture in the Bible that says, false prophets will be held accountable for, like the lies that they teach. Um, so I mean, if I'm purposefully teaching you a lie, if I know I'm lying to you, if
Okay.
I
Well, yeah, that's
like
different.
say
Yeah.
I'm just money hungry, and I'm going to preach a gospel that everyone's going to love because I want your money. I'm lying to you.
Yeah.
If I'm telling you, hey, give me $100, I'll intercede for God for you for forgiveness, and you're forgiven for the day. And if you believe, oh, I can give this pastor $100 and I'm forgiven, but you're not really forgiven. But you believe that. But when you get to the pearly gates, you're gonna be like, oh no, I paid this pastor $100 every time I sinned for forgiveness, and he talked to you for me, and God to be like, no. So I mean, and that's just like a wild example to
Right.
kind
Yeah,
of
but I believe though
like
in that
say what I'm talking
instance,
about.
yeah, but I believe in that instance, the whole the whole design of like modern day religion, right? And when I say modern day, I mean we can even talk about like centuries ago, but the whole design of modern day religion was to like literally enslave people's minds, enslave just people,
Mhm,
right? Shades of people, genders of people, just people.
mhm,
So in that example, when you're saying like, okay, well, I believed that if, I went to church and I prayed or I did what the pastor told me, so I should be okay. In that instance, to me, the person that is standing there rationalizing or trying to rationalize with God is even more wrong than the pastor that told him, yeah, you give me $100 and I'm going to intercede for you. And the reason why is because if you just look at like, I would say probably the New Testament, right? If you learn it for yourself, it is all about going inward through multiple fables about how people overcome adversity, or they find God by pretty much finding themselves. So when you have these situations, and I was guilty of this all the way up until maybe 10 years ago, of believing like all I have to do is do this, and this because that person told me to, and that's the easy way to do it. I don't have to really learn it and commit it to memory for myself. Um, yeah, I'll get to the pearly gates and I have my mansion and I'll meet everybody that died that I loved, which I don't believe that either. But well, now I don't. But I don't know. I just feel like if you are oblivious and not checked in with, like you said, your source, or trying to tap in and get that relationship for yourself, and you go to a false prophet or somebody that's not even really well versed themselves. I don't know. I just think that you're more guilty than them.
I mean, I can see that. Like, if you've been feeling uneasy in your heart and your soul this entire time, but you continue going along with it, then yeah, you are just as guilty, if not more so, because you felt that it was wrong, but you continue to do it because it was the easy way out. So yeah, in
Mm-hmm.
that situation, I do believe that the person would be more guilty. But you know, I guess I'm like liars.
Well, because I don't really believe that. I don't know. I mean, I think a lot of religion and a lot of kind of pastors or whatever, like I, people are people, and one thing that I'm learning in this stage of my life is that people are lazy. Right? A lot of people don't really read for themselves. A lot of people don't search for themselves. A lot of people go to these, seminary schools and they hear the lessons. They may or may not read the lessons because, they're trying to get to that next level. And so what they are regurgitating every Sunday is something that they heard from their parent or their mom or their school, and not really, I don't know, like committing it to like their own personal experience. So it, like I wouldn't necessarily say the lies, but like the misconception just gets perpetuated. So you go to these mega churches or even these smaller churches, and the pastor is up there only for a brief amount of time, right? Maybe 30 minutes, maybe an hour, but they're not gonna like lay out the whole, book of John for you, right? It's up to you to read for yourself. And to me, just when I survey where we are, people are lazy. They go to church. They listen to that one little blurb, and then they say, all right, check that, check that off my list. I got that done. I'm feeling good for the week. My soul is, my tank is now full. They don't read the before. They don't read the after. They don't even look at the context, and then rinse and repeat the next Sunday. So I don't know. I mean, I think.
I guess both parties are going. I guess you're right. Like it's one, we should learn for ourselves. We should pursue it ourselves. Like once we're taught, we should then do our own studying. So yeah, you're right. I can see that. Yeah, you're right. It is both parties are accountable. But with these mega churches, these people, the ones who are lying, they have such a huge microphone. They have such a huge outlet to spread their words. And so that's why I'm like, it just doesn't sit right with me. And this is not religion, but like take like a false news source. I don't want to get too political, but like take a false news station that like spews lies to the people all the time, and then the people believe it. I don't know. I feel as if sometimes people, I don't know, you at some point in time, someone has to teach you how to reach out to God. I mean, I feel as if I had to go through from birth to like 19, 20, and then like a whole stagnant period where I wasn't spiritual or religious. And then I got back. Like it's been a whole journey for me to like learn to say, hey, you need to do it for yourself and not, have the pastor or the priest or a teacher or your leader. You have to know it for yourself. And it took me all this time. I'm 35 now. So like I could literally say up until 30, 31, 32, where I'm like, you know what? I can do it for myself. But 30 years in the making to get from, being at church to like, you know what? I don't know, like, but I do believe that God's source creator is working with all of us differently. So yeah, I don't know.
How would you say religion has impacted your outlook on intimacy and your outlook on your sexuality and sensuality?
Well, as you know, Nikita, so I think we had a conversation about this. Like I was a virgin up until 35, up until this year.
Congratulations.
That
was admirable in one period, in one generation. That was very admirable.
It was admirable, but I never saw it as such. I really began to like a weirdo, like once I hit 35 and I was still a virgin. You know what? I honestly at first didn't know that maybe it was my religious background. It wasn't until I was in therapy and I was talking to my therapist about still being a virgin, and she was like, oh yeah, many of my patients with religious backgrounds, the same thing. And so I was like, But I will say it goes back to perfection. I felt as if I don't know, let me see if I can explain it correctly. I always felt like an outcast, like an oddball. So, and that was, thanks to, I was an outcast, an oddball, just from how I was raised. And I think I stayed away from intimacy because I didn't feel perfect. Like I wanted to be perfect. Before I presented myself to be in a relationship, I wanted to be perfect. I wanted all my ducks lined up in a row. I I began to kind of feel as if, oh, well, maybe God is saving me for like someone special. Like, I have like, there's like a lot of thoughts and